What do you call Wall Street without Wall Street? I don't know, but New York City's about to find out. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, last summer I reported to you that Rudy Giuliani's New York City is dead and that Democrats killed it. And I was being a little hyperbolic at the time. There were people leaving and some retail outlets trying to get out of their fancy Fifth Avenue leases and all the rest. And, there's plenty of time to change course, to go, hey, my policies aren't working. Maybe I need to backtrack or just slow down a little bit. But we're talking about Democrats here, so of course they're doubling down on stupid. Gentlemen, let me give you the latest example. Wall Street firms, and this is a Fox Business report, Wall Street firms demonized by Cuomo and de Blasio ramp up New York City exodus plans. Bankers are blaming New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio for allowing crime to reach new highs during the pandemic, and Governor Andrew Cuomo for brutal lockdowns that have decimated small business and the quality of life in the city. In a related story, Deutsche Bank announced they've got a big Wall Street location. Deutsche Bank announced that up to 50% of their employees on Wall Street might be relocated to Jacksonville, Florida, of all places. Bill, you know a thing or two about Jacksonville, and you know a thing or two about New York City, too. What does it tell you when Bill de Blasio and an Andrew Cuomo won't do a 180? In fact, they won't even move 6 degrees of separation from their current policies when Wall Street is moving to Jacksonville.
This is the same variation on people leaving California, going to Texas, and then voting like Californians. And the problem with this is that there is no consequences for your bad decisions. The people of New York elected a socialist mayor, a communist mayor, really. They knew what they were getting. They thought it'd be trendy to have ourselves a nice communist mayor. Think of how well we'll be able to thump our chests in virtue then. But that's when they should have blown the bridges and blocked up the tunnels, because then you'd have to live with the consequences of what you voted for. And if you didn't like it, then you'd have to change the way you vote. But that's not how it works anymore. Now you go and soil a place, and when it's nasty enough, you leave. You go soil some other place. Then you get to leave that place, go soil some other place, and so on. And this is what's happening all over the country, and it's happening in accelerated fashion. People who vote for the criminals and the incompetents and the leeches and the communists in California do it, and then when they get the government that they voted for, they leave. And then they go someplace else and screw up that government. When they're done screwing that place up, they'll leave and they'll go somewhere else again. When there are no consequences to making bad decisions, you have no reason to not continue to make bad decisions. If people were forced to live under the governments that they've decided to vote for, then they would change the way they vote.
Well, that would be nice. Scott, let me give you the second story here. This comes from my friend Jazz Shaw over at Hot Air. The headline says, New York City seeks to bar police from any interaction with the homeless. And the story says, having already slashed the budget for the NYPD, the city council in the Big Apple is looking to enact even more restrictions on the actions of the police department. Multiple members of the council have drafted a bill that would bar the police from any interaction with homeless individuals on the streets. That would include both responding to complaints about possible criminal behavior and outreach efforts where officers attempt to get the homeless into shelters. So this one, even Bill de Blasio says, goes too far. But I have to ask you, Scott, these New York City council members, whom do they hate more, the residents of the city or the actual homeless?
It would be one thing if they were saying, look, a lot of the problems related to homelessness, alcoholism, drug abuse, mental illness, and other, that whole sort of spectrum of causes around it. Not that every homeless person is in that situation, but the preponderance of homelessness is tied up with mental illness and addictions. If they were pouring resources into finding ways to address those issues and basically saying, look, there's an underlying problem here which we should intervene in before it gets to the point of law breaking, beyond the just illegality of sleeping on a sidewalk if it's illegal in that jurisdiction. If they were saying basically these folks need help and we're going to try to get them help so that we can get them off the street, so that we can get treatment for their addictions, so that we can get them into appropriate mental illness illness treatment regimens or facilities, that would be one thing, because frankly, I'm sure most police officers would rather not be in the business of continually going to places where the homeless people dwell and trying to deal with that morass of problems that go well beyond what law enforcement officers are supposed to deal with. But that doesn't appear to be the case here. In fact, it just sounds like they're being punitive about it and critical of police officers. I think many police officers in this country have been thrown into an impossible situation where they're basically asked to be social workers and at the same time carry the gun and the badge and the power of the state to enforce the law. So, I'd much rather see these city council people go and spend some time themselves under a bridge. Not that they wouldn't have a place to live, but that they would go and meet these people and see the kinds of issues that they're really dealing with, and then maybe listen to some expertise about how to address the needs of those people and get them off the streets.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you, now that we're getting a Democrat back in the White House, the homelessness problem will disappear from the front page of our various newspapers, just like it did during the Obama years, just like it did during the Clinton years. It's only a problem when there's a Republican in the White House, as my colleague Glenn Reynolds noted years ago. Folks, there is a problem here, and Bill was so close to nailing it. You have to remember that the socialist fish rots from the head down. These voters get what they ask for good and hard, and then they leave and infest the next state over. I live in Colorado. Believe me, I've seen this process play out with Californication in my state. That said, the real problem here isn't necessarily the voters, although God knows they have their own blame to take. The problem is a mayor like de Blasio, a governor like Cuomo or Gavin Newsom. They never face the consequences of their bad policies. They live lifestyles that isolate them from those bad policies. When they leave office, whether they're voted out or term limited out or simply retired, they don't go to a life of shame where they're driven from the public eye as a sort of penance for their bad government. And we used to kind of do this. Jimmy Carter's term, his one term, was so awful that we made him go build houses for poor people for the next 40 years. We need something like that again. Bill de Blasio, when he leaves office, he'll get a cushy teaching job somewhere. CNN, boy, wouldn't they love to have both Cuomos on their nighttime lineup. Gavin Newsom, he will never face any kind of consequence at all for what he's done to the state of California. And this is really on all of us. Our worship of celebrity has expanded so much that it's not just singers and movie stars, it's politicians too. We're putting them on the same idiot platform that we put even more useless people like singers and actors. And we're paying the price for that, because once you've achieved celebrity in this country, you're basically untouchable unless you go full Jeffrey Epstein, who, by the way, didn't kill himself. And that is your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Listen, I'm going to remind you one more time today. Shows like this require sponsors like you. So if you aren't a member, please join us. Go to BillWhittle.com, click the join button, or just make a one-time donation. We've got a great big button even for that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.